What happens when someone mistakes frugality for poverty and humility for desperation? This real estate agent was about to teach an arrogant broker the most expensive lesson of his career. Hit that like button because this entitled agent had no idea he was mocking the wife of the most powerful man in the entire city. Sarah Martinez had always been different from other real estate agents in downtown Riverside. While her colleagues drove luxury cars and wore designer suits, she rode the subway to work each morning and shopped at discount stores for her professional wardrobe. To anyone watching, she looked like someone struggling to make it in an expensive industry. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. At 29, Sarah worked for Cornerstone Realty, a mid-tier agency that specialized in affordable housing for first-time buyers. Her office was a cramped cubicle in a converted warehouse, nothing like the glass towers where the city's elite agents operated. She helped teachers find condos, nurses secure small homes, and young families navigate their first purchases. The commissions were modest, but the work filled her with purpose. Every morning Sarah would unlock the agency doors at 7:30 sharp, the smell of fresh coffee from the break room mixed with the faint scent of old carpet as she prepared for another day of helping ordinary people achieve extraordinary dreams. Her first client was usually Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman looking for a retirement cottage. Then came David, a single father searching for a place near good schools. These relationships meant everything to her. The irony of her situation wasn't lost on Sarah. While her real home sat empty across town, a sprawling estate with manicured gardens and imported marble, she found genuine happiness in her studio apartment above a corner market. She could hear the neighborhood kids playing basketball in the evenings and smell authentic tacos from the restaurant downstairs. This was the life she had chosen. Her husband Michael understood her need for this independence. Michael Vasquez owned more than half the commercial real estate in Riverside, including the very building where she worked. His name appeared on city council meeting agendas and newspaper headlines regularly. Yet he supported her decision to live modestly because he loved her enough to let her find her own path. They had been married for 4 years, but Sarah had only been living this double life for 10 months. It was her way of discovering who she really was when stripped of wealth and connections. She wanted to prove that she could succeed based on her own merit, that her achievements belonged to her alone. Everything changed on a humid Thursday afternoon in September when Marcus Thompson strutted into Cornerstone Realty for the first time. He represented everything Sarah had grown to despise about the real estate world: expensive cologne, platinum watch, and an attitude that screamed entitlement from across the room. Marcus worked for Prestige Properties, the most exclusive agency in the city. At 32, he specialized in million-dollar penthouses and luxury estates. His clients were celebrities, politicians, and old money families who treated real estate like a hobby. He had never sold a property under $500,000 and was proud of that fact. The moment he entered her building, Marcus made his presence known. He was talking loudly on his phone about closing a $3 million deal while examining the modest office space with obvious disdain. His perfectly styled hair and Italian leather shoes made him look like he had stepped out of a magazine ad. Sarah was helping a young couple review mortgage options when Marcus approached her desk. He waited impatiently, tapping his designer pen against his portfolio while she finished explaining interest rates. When the couple finally left, he looked her up and down with the kind of assessment that made her skin crawl. Her outfit that day was professional but budget-conscious. A navy blazer from a department store clearance rack, black slacks that had seen better days, and sensible flats that prioritized comfort over style. To Marcus, she probably looked like someone barely hanging on in a competitive industry. Marcus introduced himself with the kind of handshake that was meant to intimidate rather than welcome. He explained that Prestige Properties was expanding and looking to acquire smaller agencies. Cornerstone Realty had caught their attention and he was there to evaluate the operation. The condescension in his voice was immediate and unmistakable. He asked about her sales volume with the tone of someone who already knew the answer would disappoint him. When Sarah mentioned her focus on affordable housing, he actually laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and cruel. Over the following weeks, Marcus became a regular visitor to Cornerstone Realty. He would arrive unannounced, claiming to need access to certain files or records for the potential acquisition. But Sarah quickly realized he was there for a different reason entirely. He enjoyed making her and her colleagues feel small. Marcus would bring associates from Prestige Properties, other high-end agents who treated her office like a museum of mediocrity. They would walk through the cramped workspace making loud observations about the outdated furniture and modest commission charts on the walls. Their designer suits and luxury accessories created a sharp contrast with the humble environment. The comments started small but grew more pointed with each visit. Marcus would mention how refreshing it was to see agents who were content with such modest success. He would praise Sarah's dedication to helping the less fortunate, as if her clients were charity cases rather than hard-working people pursuing home ownership.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
One particularly busy Friday afternoon, Marcus arrived with a larger group than usual, 5 agents from prestige properties, all dressed like they were attending a fashion show rather than visiting a working office. They gathered around Sarah's desk while she was on a call with a client, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Sarah was helping Maria, a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night and wanted to buy her first home. The conversation involved careful budgeting and creative financing options. Maria's budget was tight, but her determination was inspiring. Sarah had spent weeks finding properties that might work within her constraints. Marcus and his colleagues listened to the conversation with barely concealed amusement. When Sarah hung up, he shook his head sympathetically. The dedication was admirable, he said, but ultimately futile. People like Maria would never achieve real homeownership because they simply didn't understand how money worked. The criticism stung because it attacked everything Sarah believed in. These weren't charity cases or impossible dreams. They were hard-working people who deserved the same opportunities as anyone else. Her success stories filled an entire filing cabinet, families who had achieved stability through her guidance and persistence. But Marcus saw only limitations and poverty. He suggested that Sarah might be happier working for an agency that matched her modest ambitions. Prestige properties occasionally needed someone to handle their smaller properties, the ones that weren't worth their top agent's time. It would be a perfect fit for someone with her particular skill set. The breaking point came on a Wednesday morning that started with unexpected good news. Maria had been approved for her mortgage, and Sarah was practically glowing with excitement as she prepared the paperwork. This represented months of work, countless phone calls and creative problem-solving that had finally paid off. Marcus chose that moment to arrive with his largest group yet. 7 agents from prestige properties, including their branch manager, a woman whose jewelry probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. They were there for what Marcus called a comprehensive evaluation of Cornerstone's operations. Sarah was at her desk organizing Maria's closing documents when Marcus approached with his entourage trailing behind. He picked up one of the papers, glanced at the purchase price, and let out a whistle of mock amazement. The numbers told a story he found both amusing and pathetic. He announced to his colleagues that they were witnessing something special, a real estate agent who had spent 3 months helping someone buy a 2-bedroom house for under $200,000. The commission would barely cover a decent dinner at the restaurants his clients frequented. The group gathered around Sarah's desk like tourists observing an exotic animal. They marveled at her dedication to such small-scale transactions. One of them calculated her annual income based on the files they could see, arriving at a number that made them all shake their heads in sympathetic pity. Marcus pulled out his phone and began recording, claiming he wanted to document authentic grassroots real estate for a presentation about market diversity. But his questions were designed to highlight what he saw as her professional limitations rather than celebrate her achievements. He asked about her career goals with the assumption that anyone would want to escape this level of modest success. When Sarah explained that she loved helping first-time buyers achieve homeownership, he nodded with the kind of patronizing understanding usually reserved for children's career aspirations. The worst part wasn't the mockery itself, but the assumptions behind it. Marcus looked at her desk, her clothes, her clients, and saw failure. He couldn't imagine that someone might choose this path deliberately, that modest commissions might be acceptable if the work brought personal satisfaction. His colleagues were recording too now, creating what would undoubtedly become content for their social media accounts. The struggling agent who didn't understand that real estate was about luxury and status, not helping school teachers buy starter homes. They were documenting her humiliation without considering that she might have feelings about being turned into their entertainment. The questions became increasingly personal and invasive. Marcus wanted to know about her background, her education, her living situation. When Sarah mentioned taking the subway to work, his eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. In his world, successful agents drove cars that cost more than her annual commission. He offered unsolicited advice about upgrading her wardrobe and suggested networking events where she might meet a better class of clientele. The assumption was that she was trapped in this situation by circumstance rather than choice, that she would jump at any opportunity to escape to something more prestigious. The final straw came when Marcus announced that he was feeling generous. Prestige Properties was always looking for support staff, people who could handle the paperwork and minor details that their top agents didn't have time for. He could probably arrange an interview if she was interested in working for a real agency. The offer was presented as an act of charity, a successful agent reaching down to help someone less fortunate climb a few rungs up the ladder. His colleagues nodded approvingly, impressed by his magnanimity towards someone so obviously struggling in their shared profession. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest, not break, but crack like the first line in glass that spreads until the whole surface shatters. She excused herself and walked quickly to the small bathroom at the back of the office, locking the door behind her before pulling out her phone with trembling hands. Michael answered on the first ring, his voice immediately shifting to concern when he heard her shaky breathing. She told him everything about Marcus and his assumptions, about the recordings and the job offer, about how tired she was of being seen as something she wasn't. The words poured out between tears she had been holding back for weeks. Michael listened without interrupting, and when she finished, there was a long silence. Then he asked for the name of her agency and Marcus's full name. Sarah gave him the information, but begged him not to do anything extreme. She just wanted the harassment to stop, wanted to return to helping her clients without becoming someone else's entertainment. After hanging up, Sarah sat in that tiny bathroom for 15 minutes, trying to compose herself. When she finally emerged, Marcus and his group were gone, but the damage was done. Other agents in the office looked at her with a mixture of pity and curiosity. The videos were probably already making their way across social media. The rest of her day passed in a blur of whispered conversations and sideways glances. By evening, the footage had appeared on Marcus's social media accounts with captions about the reality of small-scale real estate and the dedication of agents who worked with limited budgets. The comments were exactly what she expected, people praising Marcus for his insights and criticizing her for not being more ambitious. That night, Sarah went home to her studio apartment and tried to forget that tomorrow would bring more questions and stares. She had no idea that Marcus Thompson had just made the biggest mistake of his professional life, or that his assumptions about powerless people were about to collide with a reality that would change everything. The following morning, Sarah didn't go to work. Instead, she sat in her modest studio apartment, staring at her phone as notifications continued to buzz with comments and shares of Marcus's video. The footage had spread beyond real estate circles, becoming a viral example of what people called authentic hustle versus corporate arrogance. Except everyone had the story completely wrong. Michael had called her 3 times since their conversation the previous evening, but each time she let it go to voicemail. She wasn't ready to face whatever storm was brewing. Her husband's voice messages were calm but carried an undertone she recognized as barely controlled fury. He asked her to stay home, promised that everything would be handled, and assured her that Marcus Thompson was about to learn a very expensive lesson about assumptions. Around 10 in the morning, Sarah finally gathered the courage to listen to Michael's messages. His last voicemail was different from the others, recorded just an hour earlier with a tone she had never heard before. Cold, precise, and absolutely certain, he told her that Marcus would be visiting Cornerstone Realty today for what he believed was a routine meeting about the acquisition. Sarah should come to work at her normal time because she was going to witness something important. Against her better judgment, Sarah dressed in her usual modest attire and took the subway to work. The familiar routine felt different today, weighted with anticipation and dread. Her colleagues greeted her with sympathetic smiles and carefully worded questions about the viral video. News traveled fast in their small industry, and everyone had seen Marcus's documentation of her supposed professional struggles. When Sarah arrived at Cornerstone Realty, she found Marcus already there, sitting in the conference room with his laptop open and papers spread across the table. He looked completely at ease, confident in his position as the representative of a superior agency evaluating an inferior operation. His expensive suit and polished shoes seemed even more out of place in their modest office space. Marcus acknowledged her arrival with a patronizing nod and a comment about hoping she had thought seriously about his job offer. Prestige Properties was prepared to make her a generous proposal, considering her limited experience with high-value transactions. The opportunity to work for a real agency didn't come along often for someone in her position. The conference room door opened precisely at 11 o'clock, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Michael walked in wearing a simple gray suit that looked unremarkable until you noticed the perfect fit and quality of the fabric. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he had been running his hands through it, and his expression was completely neutral. To Marcus, he probably looked like another mid-level bureaucrat or possibly a city inspector. Michael introduced himself as Mike Vasquez and explained that he was there to discuss the proposed acquisition of Cornerstone Realty. Marcus immediately launched into his presentation, clearly assuming he was dealing with someone who would be impressed by his credentials and client portfolio. He spread out glossy brochures showcasing prestige properties' luxury listings and spoke confidently about market positioning and brand recognition. The PowerPoint presentation was everything Marcus had been building toward. Slide after slide of million-dollar properties, celebrity clients and commission figures that dwarfed anything Cornerstone Realty had ever achieved. He spoke about elevating the agency's profile and introducing their agents to a better class of clientele. The implication was clear: everyone would benefit from Prestige Properties' superior approach to real estate. Marcus paid particular attention to Sarah during his presentation, using her as an example of untapped potential. With proper training and guidance, even agents who currently worked with limited budgets could learn to appreciate luxury market. She could become part of something bigger than helping school teachers buy starter homes. The condescension in his voice was thick enough to cut with a knife. Michael listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes in a leather portfolio that Marcus probably assumed contained standard acquisition paperwork. His questions were thoughtful and precise, focusing on Prestige Properties' business model and long-term expansion plans. Marcus answered eagerly, convinced he was making an excellent impression on someone who clearly understood the value of what he was offering. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, with Marcus growing more confident and expansive in his descriptions of how Prestige Properties operated. He shared anecdotes about difficult clients and challenging negotiations, clearly enjoying the opportunity to showcase his expertise to someone he assumed was a fellow industry professional. When Marcus finished his presentation, Michael closed his portfolio and smiled. It was a pleasant, unremarkable expression that revealed nothing about what was coming next. He thanked Marcus for the comprehensive overview and said he had just a few follow-up questions before they could move forward with any formal discussions. The first question seemed routine enough. Michael wanted to understand Prestige Properties' current relationship with the building that housed Cornerstone Realty. Marcus looked confused by the question but explained that they had no relationship with the property. It was just another commercial space in a neighborhood that was slowly being developed for higher-end purposes. Michael nodded thoughtfully and asked about Prestige Properties' expansion plans for the downtown area. Were they looking to acquire additional office space? Marcus brightened at this question, assuming it indicated serious interest in moving forward with the acquisition. He explained that they were indeed looking for new locations, particularly buildings with potential for renovation and upgrade. The third question was when everything began to shift. Michael asked whether Marcus had ever researched the ownership structure of commercial real estate in Riverside. The question seemed odd and out of place, but Marcus answered confidently that Prestige Properties worked with several major property management companies and had excellent relationships throughout the city. Michael reached into his portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper, sliding it across the table to Marcus. The document was a property ownership record, official and stamped, showing the current owner of the building that housed Cornerstone Realty. Marcus glanced at it casually, then looked again more carefully. His confident expression began to fade as he processed what he was reading. The building was owned by Vasquez Holdings, a subsidiary of Vasquez Development Corporation, the same last name as the man sitting across from him. The man he had assumed was some kind of mid-level administrator. Marcus looked up from the paper with confusion written across his face, trying to understand how this information connected to their acquisition discussion. Michael reached into his portfolio again and pulled out another document. This one was a comprehensive list of commercial properties in downtown Riverside, with ownership information clearly marked. Property after property showed the same pattern: Vasquez Holdings, Vasquez Development Corporation, or one of several subsidiary companies that all traced back to the same source. Marcus studied the list with growing unease. The scope of ownership was staggering. Office buildings, retail spaces, hotels, restaurants, even the parking structures that served the business district. Someone named Vasquez owned an enormous percentage of the commercial real estate that made downtown Riverside function. The third document Michael produced was a business license registration for Vasquez Development Corporation. The listed CEO and primary shareholder was Michael Antonio Vasquez, the same person who had been sitting quietly in their conference room for the past hour, listening to Marcus explain how real estate actually worked. Marcus went completely pale as the implications began to sink in. The modest man in the unremarkable suit wasn't a city administrator or acquisition specialist. He was one of the most powerful property developers in the entire region, the kind of person who appeared in the business section of newspapers and whose decisions affected entire neighborhoods. Michael's voice remained calm and conversational as he explained the situation. Vasquez Development Corporation owned approximately 60% of the commercial real estate in downtown Riverside. This included not only the building where Cornerstone Realty operated, but also the luxury office tower that housed Prestige Properties. Marcus had spent weeks mocking tenants while being completely unaware that he was also a tenant of the same landlord. The revelation transformed everything Marcus thought he understood about the meeting. He wasn't there as a representative of a superior agency evaluating an inferior one. He was a tenant who had been harassing another tenant, and both of them answered to the same landlord. Worse yet, the tenant he had been tormenting was married to that landlord. Michael reached for his phone and placed it on the conference table, opening to a video that Marcus recognized immediately. It was his own recording from the previous day, the one he had posted to social media to showcase his insights about small-scale real estate. But context changes everything, and now the video told a completely different story. Instead of a successful agent offering wisdom to a struggling colleague, the footage showed a tenant mocking another tenant while being completely ignorant of their actual circumstances. Marcus had spent the video explaining why people like Sarah would never achieve real success, while being completely unaware that she was married to the person who controlled most of the commercial real estate market in their city. Michael let the video play in its entirety, watching Marcus's face as he relived his own words and actions with new understanding. Every condescending comment, every assumption about Sarah's limitations, every suggestion that she needed his help to achieve something better, all of it captured on video and shared publicly by Marcus himself. When the video ended, Michael spoke with the same calm tone he had maintained throughout their meeting. He explained that Sarah worked at Cornerstone Realty because she chose to, not because she had to. She lived modestly because it brought her happiness, not because she couldn't afford luxury. She helped first-time buyers because she found the work meaningful, not because she was incapable of handling larger transactions. Marcus tried to interrupt, to offer explanations or apologies, but Michael continued speaking. The assumptions Marcus had made revealed everything about his character and values. He had looked at Sarah and seen everything he thought was wrong with people who didn't live according to his standards. He had decided she was beneath him and treated her accordingly. The business discussion took on an entirely different tone as Michael explained the consequences of Marcus's behavior. Prestige Properties held a lease for premium office space in one of Vasquez Development's flagship buildings. The lease was up for renewal in 6 months, and renewal decisions were typically based on factors like tenant behavior and community reputation. Marcus's social media posts about Sarah had not gone unnoticed by other tenants in the building. Several businesses had contacted Vasquez Development expressing concern about sharing space with an agency that publicly mocked people for modest incomes and limited resources. The video had created a public relations problem that needed to be addressed. Michael pulled out another document, this one a lease agreement with Prestige Properties' signature prominently displayed. The rental rate for their luxury office space was substantial, reflecting the prime location and high-end amenities. But lease agreements contain clauses about tenant conduct and community standards that gave landlords significant discretion in renewal decisions. The conversation that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Michael didn't raise his voice or make threats. He simply explained reality in terms that were impossible to misunderstand. Prestige Properties could continue operating in their current location if they demonstrated a commitment to treating all community members with respect and professionalism. This would require Marcus to publicly apologize for his assumptions and behavior, not because Sarah needed vindication, but because the community deserved better than agents who treated modest incomes as character flaws. The apology would need to be as public and prominent as the original mockery, ensuring that everyone who had seen his video would also see his correction. Additionally, Prestige Properties would need to implement sensitivity training for all agents, focusing on respectful client interaction regardless of budget limitations. They would also be required to participate in community outreach programs helping first-time buyers navigate the home purchasing process without judgment or condescension. Marcus listened with growing horror as Michael outlined the requirements. The training programs would be expensive and time-consuming. The community outreach would generate minimal revenue while requiring significant resources. Worst of all, the public apology would damage his reputation as an exclusive agent who only worked with high-end clients. But the alternative was even worse. Vasquez Development could simply choose not to renew Prestige Properties' lease, forcing them to relocate to a less desirable location. Given the scope of Vasquez's holdings in the downtown area, finding comparable office space would be extremely difficult and expensive. The company's entire business model depended on their prestigious address and luxury amenities. Michael explained that this wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about education and community standards. Marcus had demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of how respect and professionalism should work in their industry. He needed to learn that a person's worth wasn't determined by their net worth, and that success could be measured in ways other than commission size. The meeting concluded with Marcus agreeing to all of Michael's requirements. He would post a public apology within 24 hours, acknowledging his inappropriate behavior and assumptions. Prestige Properties would implement the required training and community programs within 60 days. And Marcus personally would donate a significant amount to local housing assistance programs as a demonstration of his commitment to change. As Marcus gathered his materials to leave, Michael offered one final observation. Power in real estate wasn't just about selling expensive properties or working with wealthy clients. Real power came from understanding community needs and helping people achieve their dreams regardless of budget size. Sarah had more real influence and respect than Marcus would ever achieve through luxury listings alone. After Marcus left, Sarah remained in the conference room with Michael, still processing everything that had happened. The viral video that was supposed to showcase her limitations had instead exposed Marcus's character flaws. His attempt to demonstrate her powerlessness had revealed just how much power she actually had access to. Michael assured Sarah that she could continue working at Cornerstone Realty for as long as it made her happy. Her experiment in living authentically had been successful in ways she hadn't expected. She had proven that she could succeed based on merit rather than connections, even while those connections remained available when needed. The story spread quickly through real estate circles, but with a very different narrative than Marcus had intended. Instead of a successful agent helping a struggling colleague, it became a cautionary tale about assumptions and respect. People shared it as an example of why you should never judge someone's worth based on their appearance or choices. Marcus followed through on all his commitments, though his enthusiasm was obviously forced. The public apology was awkward and clearly difficult for him, but it reached everyone who had seen the original video. The sensitivity training at Prestige Properties became a model program that other agencies eventually adopted voluntarily. 6 months later, Marcus was still working in real estate, but his approach had changed dramatically. The experience had taught him that success meant more than impressive commission checks and celebrity clients. He began taking on more diverse clients and stopped making assumptions about people based on their budgets or appearance. Sarah continued working at Cornerstone Realty, but she also started a nonprofit organization focused on housing accessibility. The program helped first-time buyers navigate complex financing options and connected them with agents who understood their specific needs. She called it Bridge Home, and the motto was simple: everyone deserves respect in the pursuit of home ownership. The viral video that Marcus had posted to demonstrate Sarah's professional limitations became something entirely different. A lesson about hidden strength, the danger of assumptions, and the importance of treating everyone with dignity regardless of what you think you know about their circumstances. Because the truth about assumptions is that they reveal far more about the person making them than the person being judged. Marcus thought he was exposing Sarah's weaknesses, but all he really exposed was his own character. Sometimes that's the most valuable lesson anyone can learn. Power isn't always visible, strength doesn't always announce itself, and the people you think you can safely dismiss might be the ones with the most influence of all. Sarah chose simplicity, but Marcus learned she had the power to reshape his entire world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.